Picture a wealthy man from the seaside town of Sybaris, a place so devoted to comfort that its name is still a synonym for luxury today. He is sitting in a plain stone hall in Sparta, staring at a wooden bowl of dark, thick broth. He tastes it, sets his spoon down, and says the line that survives 2.5 millennia later. Now he understands why the Spartans do not fear death. This black broth was the defining meal of an elite warrior culture, yet we do not have a single step-by-step recipe. No Spartan ever wrote down the exact quantities or the cooking times. Our records of melas zomos exist entirely as the horrified reactions of outsiders. By the 5th century before Christ, Athenian playwrights were already using the soup as a punchline to mock their frightening neighbors to the south. We are recreating this lost dish to see if a specific list of ingredients can explain the extreme psychology of the Spartan state. The closest thing to a full account comes from the historian Plutarch. He recorded the customs of the ancient Spartan lawgiver Lycurgus, giving us the foundational ingredients for the broth: cheap, tough cuts of boiled pork and salt. But there is one final item that changes the entire nature of the dish and gives it its name. The pig is cooked in a broth darkened with its own blood. From a cooking perspective, this presents an immediate problem. Drop raw blood into a boiling pot, and it instantly seizes up, curdling into a grainy, inedible mess. The Spartans avoided this by adding vinegar. They utilized an acid to keep the proteins in suspension, proving that this was a carefully engineered method to keep the meal intact. Before we start cooking, we have to look at the logistics of this daily meal. A full Spartan citizen was strictly forbidden by law from doing any manual labor or farming. So who grew the barley and raised the hundreds of piglets required to feed an army? The Spartans relied on the helots, a massive population of subjugated people who were conquered and tied to the soil. The helots were forced to till the fields and surrender a fixed return of their harvest year after year. That mandatory tribute is what filled the common Spartan storehouses. The much-praised Spartan table, where a general and a raw recruit sat and ate the exact same rations, was entirely subsidized by the violent, invisible bondage of a slave class. In the kitchen, the turning point arrives when you lower the heat and pour the dark vinegar and blood into the simmering pork broth. The liquid immediately shifts from pale brown to a deep, glossy black. The acid in the vinegar is what keeps the blood proteins from clotting and forming lumps the moment they hit the heat. It acts as an emulsifier. The proteins stay suspended, creating a smooth, ox blood-colored liquid that releases a heavy, metallic smell, like old coins in rain. The Spartans claimed to despise refinement, yet they had mastered a sophisticated emulsification technique that modern charcuterie chefs still rely on today to make blood sausage. This bowl never sat on a quiet family table. It was a strict ration served in mandatory, daily communal mess halls known as the syssitia. To join one of these groups of 15 men, a recruit had to survive a unanimous vote. The men cast their ballots using small balls of soft bread, and a single squashed piece meant lifelong rejection from that table. Once inside, every member had to make a strict monthly contribution to the common store. They brought fixed amounts of barley, wine, and cheese, along with enough cash to buy the meat. If poverty prevented a man from making his contribution, he was expelled. Losing your seat meant losing your standing as a Spartan citizen entirely. Over time, the older veterans in the hall would willingly give up their portions of the solid pork to the younger recruits, preferring only to drink the dark, sour liquid. The mess hall was an exclusionary brotherhood. The men on the benches shared a fierce equality, but it was strictly limited to those who could afford to maintain their place in the ranks. To a modern palate, the finished broth is an assault. The sourness hits first, immediately followed by a heavy, metallic iron finish from the blood that coats the back of your throat. There is a story about King Dionysius, the tyrant of Syracuse. He hired a Spartan cook and demanded the famous soup be prepared for him, only to spit it out in utter disgust. The cook gave him a simple explanation. To enjoy the broth, one must first bathe in the freezing river Eurotas and exercise in the Spartan way. To the Spartan, the broth tasted of the lifestyle itself, of the exhaustion from training and the cold of the Eurotas. Travel a few days north to Athens, and you see an entirely opposite approach to dining. This pottery shows the Athenian symposium. Food was a joy, paired with honeyed wine, live music, and conversation lasting into the night. The Spartans looked at these soft couches and flutes and strictly banned them. They ate in silent, unlit halls, strict of decoration. The Spartans did not lack culinary skill. They deliberately decided that food should not be a pleasure. They actively chose hardship as a political stance. Every spoonful of this iron-tasting soup was a daily oath to the state. A society that can train itself to taste belonging in a bowl of blood and vinegar has already successfully killed the soft parts of a man that fear death.